Yes, people, what's going on? We're back. We're back with another stream, man. Just before the FA Cup final. I haven't actually gone live since the news broke, to be honest. I've been busy with work and whatnot, and life gets in the way, you know, people's schedules clashing and whatnot. But we've got a good panel today, man. We've got man like Guni, man like Jem. How's it going today, boys? You lot good?
All good, brother. All good. All good in the hood.
All good.
Yeah,
Still mad.
Game, yeah?
Oh shit, am I on mute or something?
No. Sorry, Guni, you're about to say something.
No, I'm saying, yeah, no, I'm good. It's kind of early over here still, but you get me. We move.
You might looking forward to the game.
I couldn't care less.
Yeah, I ain't watching it. I'm at a party after this, man. So yeah.
You're not watching it?
No, I'm at a party.
Bro, we listen. Man City should be beating these lot in it, but we definitely need them to win.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, just based in our own interest, I need Man City to win.
No, facts. But listen, we've got 20 people in the house already. A few of the comments flooding in already, guys. Make sure that you're liking the video, subscribing to the channel. I tried to put a description of Jem and Guni in there earlier. I'm not sure if it's gone through, but I'll put it in there as they're speaking. But yeah, you can find Jem on GNA TV. Guni, Man Talks Football. I got it right this time, innit?
Man, it's close. It's Man Knows Football, but these days you'll find me on different streams. I haven't really had time to upload on the channel, but I'll be here, there, and everywhere. You get me? Yeah,
no, we'll definitely get Guni on the channel more often. But listen, we've got a lot to get into, man. Before we do that, let's go through the chat real quick. See who's in there. We've got man like Will. Vamos, let's get it. Don and Guni, big up, my bro. Mr. HD, 5:30 a.m. in LA, but we're here up the Chels. Listen, big up yourself, bro. That's a real early start, man. So I appreciate you being here to listen to what we've got to say about what's going on at the minute, man. We've got man like Ravage here as well. Big up, Don. Keep putting out these bangers. Love, my bro. But yeah, a lot of people in here, man. Big up, man. Big up, guys. But listen, where do we start, man? Because listen, a lot's happened. You know, the past few days. We're obviously Poch getting sacked. Listen, boys, I can't lie. I did not expect it. I didn't really expect it. Like how I kind of looked at it, I was thinking, this guy's obviously met the objective. You know, he's most likely gonna stay because the way he finished off the season is how they visualized the squad when they were putting it together. If you guys remember what Todd Bowley was saying about, you know, the performance against Aston Villa is how they visualized the team when they put it together. So I kind of looked at it and thought, okay, he's ended the season off well. You know, we've had a lot of changes the past few years, few seasons with Tuchel, with Lampard, with Potter, with even that Bruno guy, the Baldy that managed us here. Sorry, Guni. I say the Baldy. With my lad Bruno that managed us for the Liverpool game and whatnot, yeah. And we should have even won that game. If you remember, we missed some big chances in that game, yeah. So we've had about five managers in the space of what, 2 years, which ain't good for stability. So I kind of looked at it and thought, okay, maybe they'll keep Poch, but if he carries on the same fuckeries, he'll be gone by Christmas. Do you know what I mean? But listen, first of all, yeah, Jem, to start off with you, bro, do you think it was the right thing to get rid of Poch? Do you think it was the right decision to sack him?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just getting attacked by a fly that's not leaving me alone at the moment. It keeps trying to attack me, but we move. Yeah, no, it was. I thought he weren't going to get sacked based on the fact of where he put us, but it seems to have been a little bit too little, too late, didn't it? To be quite honest with you. So, listen. Not a shock, not a massive shock that he got sacked because I still thought there might be that slight element that they might look elsewhere. They've stopped speaking to him for the last 2 to 3 months now as well, which we've been told as well, which is usually a good sign that they're not impressed or they're not happy or they're maybe venturing around to look and see what they can find. I mean, like, you know, he dug his own holes for me a lot earlier in the season. I know a lot of people say like you should give managers time, and I'm all about giving them time. But like when you bring in an experienced manager, it's just certain things that you still want to see, like basic things that you want to see, like structure, systems, you know, patterns of play, things like that, which I don't feel like we saw a lot of earlier in the season, you know, with him. So yeah, it got a bit better later on, but. You know, it's just like I said, I just think it was a little bit too late. And I actually think the targets from the board, even though we were saying Europa League, must have been Champions League for them to have made this decision as well, because maybe Europa League weren't enough. Or if he had at least maybe one of the trophies, you know, one of the two that we had an opportunity of, he might have actually got himself another lifeline and gone into the next season with one more opportunity. But, you know, like, it is what it is, man. But, you know, I've told you before, like, I don't want to keep I don't want to keep switching, bro, man, because we do need to kind of give like someone a little bit of, you know, continuity opportunities, and sometimes that is a little bit longer than just one, you know. But did we progress from the year before to then on paper? Yeah, but the football, when you look at the eye test side of it and you look at the football, you would look at it slightly different, you know. So yeah.
It's true, bro. It's true, and you make a good point when you say that he dug his own grave, man. Because start of the season, bro, when a lot of Chelsea fans were already saying in September, get this guy out. You know, a lot of people running out of patience. I was like, bro, it's a little bit too early for me, innit? We've still got a lot of injuries. The guy's been here 2 seconds, but I could clearly see that a lot of the things that he was doing weren't working. Like playing Levi Cole at left back and then playing Ben Chilwell ahead of him. You know, it will literally take me 10 minutes in training to see Ben Chilwell, and see that this guy's not a winger, right? But this guy decided to start him in 4 matches in a row, when we had wingers on the bench. Whatever people think of Mudryk, whatever people think of Sterling and all of these guys, I'm sorry, they actually know how to play that position. Ben Chilwell is a defender, a wing back at best, and he's past his best at the minute. So that wasn't a good idea, you know? Playing Enzo in the wrong position, playing Gallagher in a pivot. All of these things, bro, combining, you're not going to build any chemistry. You're not going to build any cohesion. So, again, when people were saying, get this guy out in September, I couldn't even defend him. I was just saying, listen, give it a little bit more time. For me, it's not Poch out. It's more Poch rectify your mistakes. And I still wanted to see how he got on with
you wanted him, didn't you?
Yeah.
I didn't want him.
Exactly. Everyone knows that I wanted this guy. And for me, I wanted him solely based on the fact that he's worked with young players before and he's got a good track record of developing young players, because let's not act as if, you know, the options that we had at the time were the best options in the world. You know, we had Enrique, we had Nagelsmann, who else was available? I think Flick, there was a few whispers here and there about him as well.
It wasn't
but just looking at the squad that we had, I thought, you know what, at least he's got experience of working with young players, because the reality is we ain't got that much experience in the team. Everyone's been shipped out, and we're working with a lot of young players, bruv. But Guni, how about you, bro? How are you feeling about the sacking of Poch? Do you think that it was the right decision to get rid of him?
Yeah, I do. I knew it was coming for a while, actually.
You told me. You actually told me.
I was telling people from long time, even before you, from like January. I was like, it's not looking good for Poch behind the scenes, and him talking and saying some of the things that he said was definitely not working in his favor. But with that, I kind of respected him speaking out and speaking his mind and telling, you know, a little bit of truths here and there. Obviously, he wasn't able to go, you know, pedal to the floor and that. But he said a few things, but that ultimately, you know, it rattled the people upstairs and things became untenable, which is why I was saying to you for a long time, like, Poch is definitely going at the end of the season. He's not staying. But just, you know, aside from, you know, the backstage politics and that with Chelsea, I just thought there was so much tactical naivety that we saw throughout the season. I just had enough. I just stopped trusting him, because at the end of the day, when you come to Chelsea Football Club, the onus is on you to build trust with the fans. Do you know what I mean? You've come in, you know, the hierarchy have hired you. Now you have to show us why you're hired and why you belong at Chelsea Football Club. You already know before you come to the club that it's huge expectations. You already know that you're dealing with a fan base that has very high expectations because of what we've been served up for the past 20 years. And we're not going to stop that just because there's a new ownership or there's a new manager. We're going to want that consistency to continue. We want to continue to compete. We want to, you know what I'm saying? We want to be in the running for trophies 100%. And you could just see throughout the season that just some of Poch's decisions were just mystifying. Do you know what I mean? And there's this narrative that, oh, Poch was just getting it right in the last 5-6 games of the season. Well, what about the other 33 games of the season? Do you know what I mean? I don't measure a manager's, you know, progress through the last 5 or 6 games of the season. And why I say that is because we have to stop being hypocrites. Because what did we used to say when Arsenal were not doing so well? Oh, when the pressure's off, the last 5, 6, 7 games, Arsenal seem to play well and all of this kind of stuff. So if we're gonna say that about them, why are we not keeping the same energy about this club? Maybe it's the first time that we're seeing it, But for me, that was always a massive red flag. So I felt that Poch needed to go. I felt a lot of the losses and the decisions were all self-inflicted. And I cannot continue to trust a manager that's hot and cold. A hot and cold manager is acceptable at a mid-table team where the expectations are not up there. Do you know what I mean? But at Chelsea Football Club, consistency is key. You know, it's not about, listen, man, like it's football. You win games, you draw games, you lose games. But if you approach each game in the right way, then it's going to be a lot harder for me to argue that you have to go based on this, that, and the other, because you put out the right tactics. Sometimes you're just not the better team on the day. But when you have to put it down to tactical naivety and you consistently see it, then it's a problem. Then you're going to have to walk.
Bro, exactly, bro. And that's a good point that you make as well, because it weren't even just the lineups, bro. It was a combination of lineups and the poor in-game management. And that's something that me and Jem were going back and forth on actually in the summer, because Jem was very skeptical about what Poch was going to do tactically in the team. For me, when he would speak about it, I would hear what he's got to say, because end of the day, I'm not a Spurs fan, innit? I don't remember the ins and outs of every single Spurs game. You know, when you're watching another team sometimes, especially when you're a little bit younger as well, you're not going to really look at the game tactically. You're just going to look at it kind of casually in a way. And you could see that Tottenham were playing well at the time. So for me, when it came to the tactics, I said, cool. We'll see what he can do tactically, right? I'm not saying he's a Pep or he's a Klopp tactically, but I expected this guy to be able to do the bare minimum with one game a week, and the fact that he's familiar with the league and he's familiar with working with young players. Do you know what I mean? But again, this guy was very, very reactive, bro. Very, very reactive. One game that sticks out to me a lot, is when we played Bournemouth away. Not Bournemouth, sorry, when we played Brentford away, because I was at that game, right? We started 2 attackers in that game. And us, Jem, bro, in the group chat, Guni, I was shouting, bro. Yeah, I was getting mad. I called Alex, Chelsea Fan TV, bro, shouting because I couldn't believe that we started that game with 2 attackers when Brentford lost 10 of their 12 games. Yeah, in that game, we was losing 2-1. And before they scored their second goal, literally in that ground, and you lot watching at home as well, you could probably see how much pressure they were putting on the team. And I'm like, bro, you got to change something here. I'm seeing Enzo Fernandez playing left wing, bro. Gallagher playing right wing. Right? It was only a matter of time before they fucking scored. And then surprise, he brings on Sterling. He brings on Mudryk. And all of a sudden, Brentford are being pinned back and we're looking a lot better because he was being... in that situation there, the in-game management was good, but it was reactionary. He waited for them to score first. And then in the end, we ended up dropping points. You know, and that's been the theme of his season, Jem. He's been very, very reactionary in games. What do you think of this guy's in-game management, man?
You know what my thoughts are. You know what I'm like when it comes to analysing managers. And I am very a bit like Guni when you look at things like it's one of them things like you need to show me what you're about as a coach for me to back you. Like you can't keep blaming. And the thing that annoyed me of him was his naivety, but also like he had this like excuse of always blaming the fact that he had injuries all the time. And it's like, you can't keep running with that, bro. Like you can't keep running with the fact that you've got injuries. Like, you know, there was certain parts of the season where you had a decent bench and you still set us up incorrectly. Like how long was he going to continue playing Gallagher, Enzo and blimmin' Caicedo in the midfield in every single game that we played in? Like when we didn't need to, we could have reverted to like a Palmer in the 10 and, you know, gone with wingers and things like that. And, you know, he just didn't pick up on these things early. And like his problem solving was an issue. His timing of his substitutions were an issue. And he never really noticed. He never really, like when I watched him, he never felt like he noticed when we needed, like you could see the players needed help. He just left them out there to like basically get cooked. And when we'd lose control of the game, like, you know, the best managers make things happen, you know, he doesn't. He waits until they score and then goes, oh, do you know what? And there were so many games, you know, mid-season where he was just throwing on every single attacker we had, taking off defenders and midfielders, but we had no game plan. There was no execution behind it. It was just get everyone on the pitch, we're losing, and hopefully we'll nick a draw. And sometimes it did work, on other times it didn't because it was too little too late. But this just goes to show me that this guy had no clue at the beginning of what he was trying to do. Like, or the players just couldn't execute what it is that he was asking them to do. One of the two. But I just never really understood our game plan, like our structure, our patterns of play, our like what we're doing. Like it's just so slow and predictable and boring. And it just, you know, it got better later on, bro. Like, don't get me wrong. You know, he did miss an Nkunku, Reece James, this, that, and the other. But the real reason why we saw a lot more consistency at a later stage is because he actually decided to stick with the system and play players in their positions and stick to it. Stick to it, bro. Like, do you know what I mean? If you'd have done that a bit earlier and not later in
Oh.
the season, and we were winning games and losing games, but we were like, we could see the way we were playing, like we might have been a bit like, do you know what, we can see saying here, like at least he's sticking to saying, but he just didn't, bro. He just didn't. So it is what it is.
Exactly. That's the main thing, and it goes back to what you said earlier about him digging his own grave. You know what I mean? But listen, what came out the other day, obviously when Poch got sacked, is that Chelsea won a manager with a possession-based brand of football, who's able to mount their squad into being able to control matches and also remain defensively stable. Guni, what sort of manager do you think Chelsea need at the minute? Because there's a few options. Obviously, we've got a lot of people in the chat actually saying De Zerbi. You know what I mean? They're getting on the De Zerbi vibe at the minute. You've got De Zerbi, you've got McKenna, you've got obviously Thomas Frank still in the background at the minute, and Amorim as well. And he's, for me, it's sounding like it's going to be between Amorim and De Zerbi. But what sort of manager do you want, and do you feel that Chelsea actually need at the minute for us to kick on next season?
Well, I want to start off by saying the actual type of manager that I want is not, we haven't been linked with, and is not available in the market. That's the first thing that I want to say. If I had a pick of all the managers in world football, I'd bring Don Carlo back in a heartbeat, 100%. So I'm just getting that out there, so people don't turn around and say, oh, well, your choice was this manager or whatever. No, I have to pick within what's been given. Do you know what I mean?
You have to be realistic.
Yeah, exactly. And between the names that we've been linked with, your McKennas, your De Zerbis, your Amorims, and your Michel Sanchez's. Although the links have died down quite a lot with this guy, Michel Sanchez would have been actually the guy that I would have gone with out of all four of them.
Let people know who that is. Is that the Girona manager?
He's the Girona manager. Now, this is a man that has promoted two teams from the Segunda division into La Liga. Obviously, we know the work that he's doing now with Girona, as it's incredible job that he's done. It's a team that's got, a 17,000 seat stadium, and he's pushed them to third. And at one point had their team up there with, Real Madrid actually fighting for the title. Something that for me is just nothing short of a miracle compared to where that club has been. And it just goes to show, like, especially within his example, that if you can coach your team and if you have a winning mentality and you're able to sell that mentality to your squad and they've got that level of respect for you, miracles can happen. Do you know what I mean? So that's why out of all the choices that we had, he would have really been the guy that I would have gone for. But now that we know that he's probably not going to be an option, and somewhere down the line, he'll probably eventually manage in Manchester City, I would go for Amorim, and with me, one thing that sticks with me more than anything else is the mentality of the manager. And Amorim has proved over there in Portugal that he's got the winning mentality and he's got the know-how to do so. And personally, I'm desperate for trophies. I'm not saying that we'll go on next season and we'll win the Premier League, we'll win the UCL, but the cup runs, a League Cup, an FA Cup. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see a manager come in and go for those trophies. Pochettino was close, but again, the tactical naivety actually let him down. In terms of the League Cup, the finishing, which is not necessarily his fault, let us down in the FA Cup. So
even in that game, he started Gallagher left wing, bro, against City.
Yeah, kind of crazy. Do you know what I mean? It is kind of crazy, but we still had nonetheless, we still had our opportunities to win the game.
Yeah.
Amorim, for me, mentality wise, would have been my choice, but there are question marks about the quote unquote style of football that he likes to play and whether that's going to be compatible with the current squad that we have.
Answer this one here, gaming for life, because I spoke to Jem about this yesterday. Again, I watched a bit of a video Jem sent into the group chat yesterday about how Amorim likes to basically have this kind of like a box in the midfield, where you've got different midfielders, attackers combining and attacking that way. So you never know who's going to be the one that gets that final ball. It might be the CM, it might be the striker, it might be the winger, and then building in a back three. But for me, listen, I didn't mind Tuchel going to a back five before, because I feel like that team, there was only so much you could get out of it. And it was really good that he was able to squeeze what he did out of it and obviously win us the Champions League. But how I'm looking at the team right now, Guni, I don't want to go to a back five at the back, bro. 5 defenders. I don't want that. Is that something that Amorim does?
He's well, yeah, he's dominantly a back five manager, 100%. But here's my thing is I don't care whether you play a back four or a back five, but if it yields results, then it yields results. Do you know what I mean? It's just as simple as that. I'm
Yeah,
not
but the
bothered.
conversation then goes into what happens to the midfield, because then
Yeah,
you've
no,
got
that
certain
I was
players.
about to talk about that. I was about to talk about that. This is where my concerns come in. And if we're gonna rely on a midfield pivot of Caicedo and Enzo, I'm
Oh,
gonna I'm gonna be very concerned with that. And not so much with Caicedo, it's more so to do with the athleticism that Enzo, I believe, lacks. A lot of people say, well, this guy he's had a hernia problem, blah blah blah. But even before the hernia issue, like his athleticism hasn't really been, up to the standard that we need for a two-man pivot in the Premier League. So that would be definitely my main concern, 100%. So I don't know whether Amorim is going to be able to adapt and scrap the back five and go with your traditional back four, perhaps with three midfielders. If he could do that, then great. But again, it will be a massive risk. I understand the perspective of people saying, well, why would you want to take a manager who would have to adapt to a back four formation when you've got another manager in De Zerbi who naturally plays that? So I kind of do understand the argument. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And Jem, and what do you think of Amorim, bro? Because you kind of said in the group chat that he would be your number one, but then backstage you're like, you're not too sure. Everyone's minds are changing, bro. But
I'm not.
A lot of people in the chat are saying it as well. Like back five is not it. Big up Trigger, bro.
I think with Amorim,
there's someone else that said here. Big up Keith as well. Every time, bro. Amorim is like a young Portuguese Pochettino. And he also said here, Watch Sporting. Amorim is a counter-attacking coach. He bypasses the midfield and he focuses more on wing backs that would not work. Listen, people, if you guys watch Sporting, you've watched a lot of Amorim, keep the comments coming, man, because listen, I'm not going to claim I know about this guy because I haven't watched a single Sporting game. I'll be real. So you lot are educating me. Guni's educating me. Jem, you've done a lot of research on him as well. But what do you think about Amorim? Do you think he'll work with the sort of squad that we've got and what we're trying to build at the minute?
What I said with Amorim is that I feel like he's the one that intrigues me the most, like with his style. And I think I agree. I'm very about the whole thing of like we have to find a manager that suits our profile of players because we do need to get the best of what we got. But not to say though, I don't think with Amorim, who's to say that he can't tweak his system slightly? Don't get me wrong. I watched parts of his game, and there's a lot of variation in these systems. It looks like it goes into a back three, but one of the reasons he uses wing backs is because he uses them as decoys. He wants to play through the middle of the pitch, so that's why he puts so many number of individual players through the middle, because it's very ticky-tacky. It's very 1-2, run off the ball, get in behind. And don't get me wrong, like it has its like worries. I'm not saying it's like the perfect system and I think we've got the players for it. But when I think of like Palmer and Nkunku, for example, playing in like that inverted winger role and into them like, them tight spaces, I feel like they would benefit a lot in that type of system. I even actually think Enzo, to a degree, with the ticky-tacky one-touch football, would actually benefit with it. I agree with Guni in terms of Enzo, in terms of like his positional awareness, in terms of his athleticness and stuff. I don't think he's the most athletic, 100%. And you know how big of an Enzo fan I am. I think he's a top player. But in this type of system, I think it's all about how quickly you can get the ball moving at a quicker speed in transition from one into the other. And I think in that type of football, when you've got someone that's very good with the ball, like himself, Enzo, orchestrating that with a Palmer and Nkunku and maybe a Jackson dropping in, which we know he's very good at doing, and holding the ball and then running off, and that could look very good. So, like, I get my biggest worry with Amorim is when is the bozo players that we've got at the back to a degree, because you make one little bad pass in the system when it's set up and we're trying to transition forward, and then we're left with three at the back against an opposition attack, and the wing backs are so far up the pitch they're not able to get back quick enough, and then we could get hurt. But then it depends on the position of Caicedo, for example, because even in Pochettino's like latter ends, if you watch it, there was moments where Caicedo was forced to play like a right centre back in a free, or so we still played like in variations free at the back. People just don't see it because it's like people think, oh, with a formation it's strictly 4-2-3-1 or strictly this, but I always see it that in game it changes, so like it just depends on how the game's going and how we're trying to input ourselves against the opposition and find ways to try and break them down and make things work. So I think these players are able to adapt to like starting in a 4-3, but then changing it in game, in my opinion. So I think with Amorim, it's like, yeah, it's a little bit exciting, but at the same time, I still agree that there's a lot of like the unknown. I think we need a left back if we get Amorim. Like we can't have Cucurella running up the end of the pitch, other end of the pitch.
You need a left wing back. You need a left wing back, bro. Yeah. Bro,
you know,
listen, please tell me that this Chilwell guy, they're looking to get rid of this guy, bro. Please.
I don't with Chilwell. I'd hope so. I don't honestly. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the Chilwell situation, because we also have to remember as well that Cucurella was very close to leaving Chelsea for Manchester United towards the final couple days of last transfer window. So that's something that we still need to bear in mind, that Cucurella might be the one to go and not Chilwell. But I massively and wholeheartedly agree. I massively and wholeheartedly agree that we do need a left back. And personally, I felt that both of them can go, and we need to sign 2 completely new left backs, 100%. Chilwell, I'm afraid, I think the injuries have taken this toll on him. His decision making as well, I feel like it's gotten progressively worse. One thing that vindicates that opinion, was the FA Cup semi-final. You know, what are you doing not squaring the ball? How are you losing the ball there? That was really our opportunity to get ourselves back. At that point, it was 0-0. We could have actually gone, could have been 1-0. Do you know what I mean? Was it FA Cup final or League Cup? 1 or 2.
No, it was against Man City, bro.
So FA Cup
semi-finals. Yeah.
Yeah, so so it's frequent things like that make me think that it's time to move Chilwell out. You'll have a portion of the fan base that will say, how can you want to let him go? He's one of the Champions League winners in the squad. And this is my thing about that, right? Is just because a player has won a lot of trophies, it does not mean that their form is going to stay the same. Players improve, players decline at a very different rate. Do you know what I mean?
Same thing as managers, bro. The same thing happens to managers.
Exactly. I loved Branner. I loved Ivanovic. I thought he was an absolutely excellent, right back. But that season that we finished 10th, you could see that this guy was absolutely shot to pieces. Would it have made sense to keep him based on the amount of trophies that we had won with him? No.
Another example.
Yeah, exactly. It's clearly not working. And, before you move on, there is one comment that I do want to address from Keith, who's made some very good points. He says, Guni, why didn't you talk about athleticism of Enzo last season when he was balling Chelsea fans and recency bias? Now, this is the thing that people do. They will say things just to score points in an argument. And this is not me being provocative to you, Keith. I think you've made some excellent points in the chat. However, if you had been watching me very carefully, especially when we were about to sign Enzo Fernandez, one of the things that I did question about Enzo was his athleticism and how that was going to affect him in the Premier League. So that's definitely not something that is based on recency bias. Outside of technical ability, there are things that are intangibles in the Premier League that you do need. One of them, depending on the position that you play, you do need a bit of pace about you. And you do definitely, if you're playing in the middle of the park, you need athleticism and you need brilliant stamina. And you need to not be an injury-prone player. Those are the things that I always bring up. Like I used to bring up on my streams as well. So I did mention that about Enzo Fernandez. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And listen, just because he's not the most athletic, dynamic player doesn't mean that he's a bad player. And that's why you need to make sure that you're making the system, suit a player like Enzo. You want to hide all his weaknesses. I've spoken about this before. The best coaches always make sure that they're hiding as much weaknesses as possible in their players. And for me, like Gaming for Life has said here, bro, Amorim's used a 3-4-3 in 188 of his 205 matches. Though he's fielded a 2-striker formation on some rare occasions. That's Amorim, yeah. And for me, like I've said, bro, looking at the midfield, I'm thinking, how's that going to work? You're going to play Caicedo and Lavia, but then what happens to Enzo? If you play Caicedo and Enzo again, are you going to be inverting a left back into the midfield to help out a little bit more? But then that takes away the wing back on that side. It takes away a little bit of width. At the same time, I'm looking at the wingers, Mudryk and Madueke, they're not going anywhere. And if we go and sign Olise, what then happens to Palmer? What then happens to Nkuku, in this formation? So for me, it just creates too many conversations, I would say, where it's like, what's going to happen to this guy? What's going to happen to that guy? I'm not for this formation. I'll be honest. I really don't want to go back to a back five. Yeah. And for me, I spoke about this yesterday as well, Guni. I spoke about the fact that I actually think the fact that Reece James was playing as a right wing back it played a big part in his health, you know, because that guy came through as a right back. Yeah, right wing back is completely different. You're basically playing as a winger. And if you guys remember, all our chance creation was coming from him and Ben Chilwell. I really don't want to see Reece going up and down like that again, bro. I don't want to see that.
Do you know Reece James actually through the youth academy was a centre mid?
Yeah. He was a centre. Even when he went on loan at Wigan, he was a centre mid. Yeah,
he was a centre mid. But when you're going in those wide positions, especially as you know a fullback or a wing back, like your fitness and athleticism has to be through the roof. Absolutely through the roof, because you're bombing up and down the pitch consistently. It's like, you know, I liken it to back in the day. I don't know if you guys remember or watched, you know, how much Cafu played and how he was for AC Milan. That guy, even at 40 years old, from minute one all the way to even when it was extra time, was bombing it up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down that pitch. Now that's become the norm in today's football. So if you're a player, especially, you know, with muscular injuries or history of muscular injuries, that's 100% going to affect you, especially if that's not a natural position that you've played. If you're going from youth football dominantly playing in the center of the midfield and then you're moving out wide and you're playing as many competitions as you're playing, it's going to have some wear and tear on you 100%. So exactly. I think Reece has been a bit of a victim of that. Yeah,
exactly. And I don't want to put him through that, because as it is, we need to sort out this injury problem that we've got. We've had it for way too long. I know Poch wasn't to blame for everything. What's come out after is obviously he played a big part. They were watching him in his training and they felt that it was a little bit too intense, you know. And I spoke about it during the season. I said, bro, it can't be a coincidence that guys come back and then they get injured with a new injury. You know, you have in Cuckoo, he goes with a knee injury, which wasn't on Poch. Obviously, he got injured in pre-season. He comes back for like 2 weeks after these lot kept telling us, oh, if we had in Cuckoo, we'll be better off here, we'll be better off there, which I agree with to an extent, but he's not Messi. You know, he's not the Messiah, right? He gets injured again, and it's a hip injury. Lavia comes back from an ankle injury. He gets injured again, it's a thigh injury. Badiashile comes back with this injury. He gets injured again, it's something else. That's why I've got to look at it and think, yo, I don't know what type of military training this guy's doing. And that's another reason why Poch had to go, you know? So I want to just make sure that we're building the best situation that we can build at the minute. Because Reece James, for me, he shouldn't even be playing 90 minutes at the minute. We've got Gusto there for a reason. Give him 60, 70 minutes and then you bring Gusto on. Yeah. Or you start Gusto for certain games. You know what I'm saying? But just before we move on to the next person, boys, yeah, like how do you Jem, do you feel like this is the, you know, this is a hard job for a manager to walk into? Because honestly, bro, yeah, for me, my how I kind of look at it, I think it's a big job because obviously we're Chelsea. I really don't think it's the hardest job out there, bro, because there's a lot of quality in this team. And when they're set up correctly, bro, look what happened end of the season. We win 5 games in a row. So what do you think? Do you think it's a hard job, or do you think it's more of a big job? How would you look at that?
I think there's a lot more pool of talent now than it was when we had Ziyech, Pulisic, Glimin, Havertz and Mount playing up front. That's for sure. So, you know, whoever's coming in is being given technicians now. It's being given wingers. It's being given, all right, we haven't got a forward, but Jackson can kind of do a job to a degree, even though, you know, I still think we need someone else up there. Like, you know, there's players there now for them to utilize and use and work with and get the best out of. And if I was a manager looking at Chelsea, I would look at how I think they have to, they would have to assess it on how they play naturally in terms of their systems, in terms of their things. And then you'd have to imagine how it would look with the players that are at Chelsea. Like with Pochettino, I feel like he just went, yes, shook the hand, come in with a job, like, and just decided to just run whatever it is that he wanted to do in terms. And I get that, like he wanted to try and, you know, do whatever it is that he thought he could do on the pitch in terms of set us up in any way, and hopefully the players would just bed to it. But it weren't like that. And when you've got the young players, you lack experience. They need guidance. They need a coach. They need someone to like drill them. You know, you need to be, you know. So for me, it's like I think the job's still very attractive for all of these managers that would be a link to. Even Amorim to a degree, I think would look at it and go, do you know what? I'd like to taste, you know, Cole Palmer or an Nkunku in my team, or, you know, whatever. So like, I think there's that attractiveness of young players, and you can clearly see where we're trying to go in the next like couple of years with the young players. It's just whether or not it pays off, you know, like a lot of talent, you know, we're signing Brazilians from, you know, 16 to 17-year-old, paying nearly 60 odd million euros or whatever just to try and get these guys and stuff. And, you know, there's a clear image of what they want to do. So if I'm the manager coming in, you've just got to, number one, like the project, because you're going to want to be sticking around. And number two, you're going to want to make sure that whatever it is that you do, you know, express in terms of systems is going to fit the current profile of what's over there at the moment as well. And, you know, this is why partly Nagelsmann walked away as well, because like, it was very like, you know, he probably liked the idea of coming in and managing Chelsea, but then when he saw the project, he was just like, nah, I want, you know, I might want this, I might want that. And I don't think you're going to get that at Chelsea. I think it's more, this is what you're given. We're giving you these talents. You've got to make it work, you know? And that's the difference right now with the decision.
Spot on, bro. Spot on. And for me, I'm happy with the way that we're trying to go down the route of, you know, having a recruitment team that deal with all the purchases and transfers and whatnot, and making more club signings than the manager signings, bro. Because we found ourselves in a shitty situation, bro. And it's only last season where we managed to flush everyone out. You know, where we had players, Sarri players, Conte players, Lampard players, all in one team. You know, because Roman, he used to just say, yo, who do you want? Okay, let me go buy him. You want Lukaku? Okay, let me go buy him. You want this guy? Okay, let me go buy him. You know what I mean? And for me, cool. Yes, you do want your superstar signings here and there. If Haaland's available, of course you want to back the manager if they say, yo, go get me Haaland. If Neymar's available in his prime, go get me Neymar. But then with certain man, for example, like let's say Gallagher was in the market and didn't play for Chelsea, that's the type of profile that a Poch would be going for. And for me, he shouldn't be given that control. Any manager that comes in should have been given that control to go get a player that plays their style of play, if that makes sense. This is where I'm looking at the team of recruiters at the minute. They need to make sure that they're bringing in the right manager that can work with the players that they're signing. Because it's not like they haven't signed some good players, bro. You know, Palmer, Gusto. You know, I know you're not fully sold on Petrovic and Guni. For me, he shouldn't be starting anyway. You know what I'm saying? He should be a second choice, but he's been a good signing in my opinion. You know, Caicedo, Enzo, some of these guys are very good signings. And that's how I kind of look at it. And looking at Olise, yeah, big up Jeff. He says, I would love Olise at Chelsea, bro. I would love Olise at Chelsea. And for me, if I'm looking at it from Olise's point of view, in comparison to United, the caliber of ballers that we've got here, bro, the fact that you're in London, you know, this is Mandem. Do you want to go play with Nkuku, Gustos, you know, these sort of players, Palmers and whatnot? Or do you want to go to Luke Shaw and Maguire and these sort of guys? But what do you think of the Olise links at the minute, Guni, man, before we go into a bit of the derby chat?
Olise is an interesting one. He's definitely he's a player that I've been wanting badly at Chelsea. I mean, ever since, you know, back again when I used to be in the studio with Troops and Zar, I used to say Michael Olise is my guy. Like I love this guy and I'd love to see him come back to Chelsea. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of feel this is where the very rare occasion that I will sympathize with the recruitment team. Because last season we did actually try and get it over the line, but Crystal Palace they blew the whistle in it and they took us to court. They said no, we're not having this. We can't let the player go for free, but we were very, very close to signing him last season. But Olise for me is an absolute maverick. He's a maverick. You know, from a creative standpoint, he's brilliant. From a goal scoring threat, he's brilliant. Dribbling, he's brilliant. You know, set pieces, he's great. He's an all round winger. And the thing is as well, for his age, the amount of experience that he's got is bucket loads. Maybe not on the European level, he hasn't really had that much experience, but in terms of Prem experience, it's more than enough for me. And this is one of the things that I say is like, you know, experience is relative. You know what I mean? You don't have to be in your late 20s or your early 30s to have bags of experience. There are players out there that do fit the profile and that do fit the stature that Chelsea are looking for, but have played a lot of games. They've played plenty of games. I mean, you see a lot of young players out there. You've got Bukayo Saka for Arsenal, who's played a lot of games. You know, this is more of an extreme situation in terms of like your Kylian Mbappe. He's been playing since he was 17. He's got bags of experience. But the point is that there are players out there. Olise is definitely one of them. My questions that I asked before we sign a player is, do they come in? Do they elevate the level of the team, the position that they're playing? And do they add what we currently miss in the squad? And the answer is yes to all three of them for Olise. And just even aside from the benefits on the pitch, in terms of what makes us one of the front runners for him is the fact that Olise, you know, is a Cobham boy. He's an academy boy. His brother Richard has just signed a new contract at Chelsea as well.
Yep.
So these are things that could be more of an incentive to push him towards our direction. But one thing that I do know is Manchester United are very interested. Ineos are kind of hell bent on trying to bring the player from Crystal Palace to Manchester United, and Olise actually is a boyhood Manchester United fan. But we have seen players, you know, that have been touted with a move to their boyhood fan clubs, that don't end up going there. They'll end up going.
Luke Shaw, bro. Luke Shaw's a big one. He's a Chelsea fan, and we were linked to it at the time.
And he went to Manchester United. So there are examples of that where just because a player supports a team, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be going to that team. So we've got a very strong case in signing Olise. On top of the fact that, you know, Olise's already in London. He doesn't have to move. He's already got his friends and his family already settled in London. Everything really is there for him. And in terms of like the first team, when you look at that right wing position, Olise for me would be the obvious one who'd be starting week in, week out in that position as long as he's fit.
Facts. And a few people like Joey have said it here. Abdullah as well. Don't forget he's injury prone and gaming for life. Bro, listen, a few people think that Olise is injury prone. For me, what's happened this season is he's been mismanaged, bro. He's been brought back too early. Roy Hodgson even spoke about this. I can't remember what game it was where they where he came back from his hamstring injury and they brought him off the bench and then he got injured again shortly after coming on. Yeah, and Hodgson spoke about it. Said, listen, the medical team told me that he's fine to come on. And Olise told me that he wanted to come on as well. So I think he even tried to.
Let me back your point here because I've actually got numbers. 2020, 2021, Olise for Crystal Palace played 46 out of 46 games. 2021, 2022, Olise played 31 out of 38 games. 22-23, he played 37 out of 38 games. 23-24, he played 19 out of 37. That to me there does not scream like an injury-prone player. I'm more leaning towards what you just said. I think it's down to mismanagement and it was down to the pressure of how badly at that point Crystal Palace were doing that they needed their Maverick to be on the pitch by any means necessary, which is why you can see the massive drop-off in the amount of games that he played this season. He's not going to have that pressure if he comes to a team like Chelsea.
Exactly, bro. Look at this, Gem. Despite playing just 18 games in 23-24 this season, Olise has set a new personal best for goal involvements in the Premier League season, bro. 10 goals and five assists. He was averaging a goal involvement every 79 minutes. And like Guni has said, bro, as much as I like Madueke, and I think he's got a lot of potential, bro, this guy starts for Chelsea. It's a no-brainer. He's got the Premier League experience, very polished for his age. And again, I was excited at potentially signing him when we was linked. If we signed him, we wouldn't have ended up with Palmer, and it would have been peak for us because obviously Olise was injured as well, which is a problem. But Jem, what do you think of Olise, man?
I think he's a very, very talented young lad. I think he brings something that we don't have. I agree with Guni. I think what's different to him and Madueke is that when he gets into the final third, he has that eye for a pass. And sometimes I feel with Madueke, he does the first bit very well, gets round the player, but then his decision making in that like last moment is always a little bit meh. With Olise, it feels like he gets into the final third and he just has that coolness and calmness to be able to find that pass. A bit like Cole Palmer, really, when he gets into them positions, isn't it? He knows like he could just dip a ball over the top on, and you can see that run's going to be made by the winger or the forward or whatever. And it's like they're the differences, but he can also contribute to goals as well. You know, I think there's a polished, like when you look at Madueke, I always say like he needs to work on his shooting. Like he's a good player and he's like, you can see the raw talents in him, but I still feel like he needs to practice in the shooting. At least he's not like, you know, like the most polished finisher in my opinion, but I still feel like you put him in front of goal and you give him enough chances, he's putting a handful of them
he's
away.
a clean finisher, Jim. He's a clean finisher, bro.
Yeah, he has.
Bro, and the thing is, he doesn't score, bro. The goals that he scores, they're not easy finishes, but he makes it look easy, bro. Like he'll just get outside the box, and he'll just place it.
Yeah. However, the only thing with him, and I was exactly the same with Wesley Fofana when we signed him. The same thing. And you know what I'm going to say. When Wesley Fofana, before he came to Chelsea, I said to you guys, the one thing that worries me isn't the ability of the player, because I think they give us that extra. Do you know what I mean? It's the availability. Availability is so key. And when you look at Wesley Fofana since he's come to Chelsea, in 2 seasons, he's played a quarter of a season. in 2 seasons, which is ridiculous. Like, and we've spent how much money on this guy? And like, when you look
You
at
don't
his
hear
injury,
what Guni just said about his record though. He hasn't actually missed a lot of games.
well,
Only
no, but
really
like,
this season.
like it's not that for me. It's reoccurring that worries me slightly.
Okay.
It's the reoccurrence that worry me, because like when you look at for Fana in 2020, 2021, he's had a knee injury, but he's reoccurring injuries before that were always knee injuries. And when he came to Chelsea, he had that like he had the broken fibula, didn't he, which put him out for ages. But then his injuries with Chelsea, his last 2 injuries that put him out for like nearly 17, say 24 games, have been knee injuries again, you know. So that again shows a reoccurring issue that he's had back in 2020, 21. And his recent injury, all right, it's different. It was is a ligament tear, but you know, he just seems to continuously keep getting these injuries. And with Olise, I'm not like, his injury list isn't bad, but all that worries me.
Yeah, bro. Look, see what in 2021, 2021 rest 2 days there. That was for QPR, 1 game missed. Inflammation of the sole a season later. That was for 12 days. So he missed only 2 games there. He had a hamstring injury, obviously, last season. He missed 13 games there. So he was out from June till November. And then he had another one this season again. That was where he missed 8 games this season.
So like, you look at that,
it's actually not. It's not.
No,
I'm looking and I'm concerned about that.
I'm trying to get at. Like, it's not just looking at the record. It's, for me, it's just the worry of reoccurring. And when you come to Chelsea, he's playing automatically. He's going to be playing more games. I hope there's a rotation, but automatically he's going to be playing more games twice a week. You're going to have the Club World Cup. You've got the Europa League. You've got the Premier League. There's a lot of football to be played when you come to, you know, the bigger clubs. We already evidently know this. I just think my issue is not him coming to Chelsea for that. It's partly price tag, but also for me, him coming and whoever the manager is, making sure that they, like Reece James, they use rotation. Like, rotation's so key for me. As long as you're making sure that you're looking after the player through the process, then I'm cool. I'm not saying he's going to continuously have hamstring injuries, but back-to-back hamstring injuries, and then coming into another season and playing more games for a club where you're going to probably start as well in twice, 3 times a week or whatever, just worries me slightly. That's all. Nothing to do with the ability and whatever, just more. Yeah, just more that, because I look at
I get it. I do. Bro, I do get why you're skeptical. We've had a lot of problems with injury recently, innit? So I get why you're skeptical, man. But going back to managers a little bit, you know, for me, listen, you guys know who my number one is, innit? And Abdullah says it here. He says, I'm talking on a technical and tactical aspects. Every manager wants to win. RDZ, so Robert De Zerbi was suffering because his players were being sold, and he thinks that he would cook at Chelsea. And I just want to share something here that Pius put on his Twitter, because a few of the points that he's mentioned about De Zerbi I actually agree with. I don't agree with everything that Pius says, to be honest, but
man, like
a few of the things that he said
10 million.
But he says here, Robert De Zerbi, heavy possession style, rated extremely highly by fellow managers and ex-players of his, teaches football, per journalist brief. Sam George has joined the hierarchy, which is a good point. Also worked with Paul and Stanley. These can make the collaboration work together. Has the ability to control matches. 4-2-3-1 and 4-3-3 suit us perfectly. He's already coached Caicedo, Modric, Colwill. No bad management history. Working with young players at Chelsea is easier. Not many egos, he says. Connects with fans, has the charisma, and is quite passionate. Listen, what do you guys think about De Zerbi? Because for me, listen, it's a no-brainer to bring him in, man. I don't look at anyone else at the minute, you know, with confidence that they'll be able to work with the players that we've got. Maybe because obviously I've watched Brighton closely. From last season, I watched a lot of Brighton last season because obviously I had a feeling that was going to try and go get Caicedo. And obviously Levi played there, so I enjoyed and I just enjoy how they play as well. They were playing really, really good football last season. I'm skeptical about like everyone else in terms of having a plan B. I think at times it's not every day play out from the back. You know what I mean? Sometimes just hoof it long, like what Petrovic does. You know, it's not going to hurt if you do that. It's not every day play out from the back. But how I kind of look at it, to play his sort of football, bro, is risky football, which means that you need to bring in high quality, you know, very, very good players is what you need to play this level of football. And I think a lot of people take away the context of what's happened this season. I know, you know, he's been on the end of some batterings. I know he hasn't been as good as what he was last year, but let's not act as if he didn't lose McAllister and Caicedo, bro. Respectfully, even they've gone to Chelsea and Liverpool. Big teams, right? That just goes to show how good they are, right? And he's lost both of them. he was begging and crying for Levi Colwill. Remember what he was saying about us, you know, about Chelsea and whatnot, was going back and forth about Levi, talking about him as if he plays for Brighton, you know. He's lost a lot of key players, bro, and a lot of injuries to key players this season. The likes of Matoma, Gross. These guys have struggled with injuries this season. So for me, when I've watched Brighton, I'm still seeing them playing the same way, but it's just their quality overall has dropped. It's quite similar to what's happened with Burnley, you know, where they're playing well in the Championship, but they've come over here and they can clearly see that level of quality that they have, it's not good enough to do what company's trying to do. And it's the same sort of thing as what I see with De Zerbi. Because, bro, just the other week we played this guy, you know, and they were getting in some good positions. We ended up having to counter them in the second half. You know what I mean? But Guni, bro, what do you think of De Zerbi? Because for me, I think it's a no-brainer to bring him. I think he suits our team best. I can't lie.
I'm a bit on the fence with De Zerbi. It will be his first major club that he'd be managing. We know he's been at Brighton, he's been at Sassuolo. He actually done very well at Sassuolo. Actually, he finished 6th with Brighton, which is in context is a very good finish. But I have to agree with you in terms of like he's been a bit handicapped in terms of the amount of injuries and the players that he has lost 100%. I do think that there is a good manager in there. I still do feel that taking him now would be a bit of a risk, but which manager out of this list isn't a risk, I suppose, when you look at it that way. My concern with him is he can die on his sword. Do you know what I mean? And we've seen that numerous times with Brighton. Now, whether that's also down to the lack of quality they've got in the squad, that could also be part of it. But the concern for me that defensively sometimes it can be a bit all over the place at times. You know, he does leak in quite a lot of goals. There is that. However, listen, I'm not just going to say
make a lot of individual mistakes, though, man. I'm seeing
that's true.
The guys like they're playing it into the midfield. My man's just losing it. The centre backs are just. I remember against Man United, bro, just losing it. Like, you know what I mean? It's a bit mad.
I hear that. I mean, that's true. But then also as well, when I look at the positives, you know, he's already worked with Caicedo. He's already worked with Levi Colwill. In fact, when he worked with Levi Colwill, that was the best version of Colwill that we've seen. I personally feel. He's also worked with Mudryk as well. So there are players in there that he has worked with, and one in particular that I would like to see him work a little closer with is Mudryk, because for me he has been way below the standard. And if he can come in and get some of these players who haven't necessarily performed to the standards that we have expected them to, then that's automatically a plus. He's got a record for working well with youth players as well. So, you know, it could go right. It could go go correct. But I just feel like it is a bit of a risk. But considering who's available in terms of this managerial merry-go-round, he would be in one of my top 3 choices. He wouldn't be number 1, but he'd definitely be up there with one of the choices that we should be making.
Do you think that it's been a bit of a smokescreen adding McKenna and Thomas Frank to it, so De Zerbi doesn't look as
I don't think so. I don't think it was a smokescreen. I actually think Chelsea have held genuine interest in both of those managers, more even especially with Thomas Frank. You know, before Pochettino got the job, we were actually linked with him. The hierarchy do like Thomas Frank. I wouldn't want him at Chelsea at all. I just wouldn't. But here's another thing as well. It's like Chelsea are not the only top club that are interested or that have been talking about Thomas Frank behind the scenes. There have been several other top clubs that have been looking at him. So they must see something that clearly us guys don't see.
With him, but just a quick one, bro. It's similar to Amorim, man. Like, his style just won't work with these players, man. I don't think him do is just counter attack. That's it, bro. I
don't think it will either. So in terms of McKenna, with him, he's a name, from what I understand, has come up because, you know, Chelsea are the recruitment is very data driven, and McKenna in the top, not the top 5 leagues, but in Europe has been one that's been quite up there with the data sheets, you know, back-to-back promotions with Ipswich Town, which in itself is impressive. But to me, there's still a massive point of, well, have you ever managed a game in the Premier League? you know, let alone the season in the Premier League. So for me, that would be a massive, massive risk, and a risk that I would want to avoid. I think a good move for McKenna right now would be to take a team perhaps like Brighton. De Zerbi's gone. Maybe he can step into that fold and really prove himself, and then perhaps, you know, get a move through that way. Do you know what I mean? By proving himself at a Premier League club that's not necessarily expected to be fighting for trophies. I do think there is interest there, yes, but I don't think Chelsea are going to aggressively pursue those two. We have to also accept that we're going into an era where the whole manager's way or no way is going out of the window. Chelsea are not the only club that are recruiting via their recruitment teams and giving their managers the tools. You know, you've got Manchester United, who are definitely going down that direction. You've got other teams that are starting to head down that direction. And for
Man
me,
City already do it. Man City already do it, bro.
Man City do it, exactly. Now, for me, I don't necessarily mind that approach, but what I do mind is who you're trusting to oversee the players that are going to be coming in and are supposed to be molding in together. That's where my issue is, because if you've got a reputation like somebody like Tixi over in Manchester City, you've got somebody like a Luis Campos, you've got somebody like even a Monchi or somebody like that who has the track record of building squads that have gone on to win titles, adding players that have, you know, go on to become world-class elite players, then it's a project that can work very well. But with Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart, I have a lot of doubts based on what they've shown us over the past, you know, 2 seasons so far.
Do you think the thing is, I get that. I get why people are skeptical. And just before we go into you know what you think about De Zerbi, Gem, do you feel, because for me, Guni, I kind of feel like Poch hoodwinked those two, man. I feel like he did, bro, because what he showed us in pre-season is completely different to what he decided to do in the season. He decided to like show us possession-based control, nice fluid football. Then he changes it and goes to chaotic ping-pong football, bro. And I'm pretty sure that, for me, how I kind of look at it, I think he went into the interview and told them one thing. When they ask him all these questions, because don't forget, they took like 2 months to find a new manager, yeah? When they're asking him, okay, tactically, how would you do this? And how would you do that? He probably answered everything correctly. And they're like, okay, cool, go and do it now. And then when it came to it, it's like, raw. This ain't what he told us you're going to do, bro. And this ain't what we asked for. You know what I mean? That's how I kind of look at it. And I think Todd Bowley, I'm so happy that he came out and he basically said, this is how we visualize the team. That is very key, because this is how I visualize the team in pre-season. This is how probably you visualized it, Guni and Jem. Everyone that was watching us, even rivals, were like, yo, Chelsea look like they can cook this season. You know, then he completely changes it. So maybe there's that part of it as well. Do you feel that maybe Poch maybe hoodwinked these guys as well a little bit?
I think with that, we also have to, you know, consider the fact as well that it is pre-season and a lot of teams are not going to go full intensity. It's just not going to happen, because the priority for,
I'm talking about the style.
the particular style. Yeah, I mean, I agree, but then also as well, we were hit with a couple of injuries that did affect that. Do you know what I mean? So I have to also give him that. But I do agree. The style of football did change come towards the beginning of the season. Now I've noticed a small pattern here. I don't know if you'd even call it a pattern. Sometimes I connect dots where they're not supposed to be, but I feel like sometimes, you know, managers, they panic and they make decisions, you know, based on what's that word? Just based on pressure. Like, I'll give you an example. Pep Guardiola, listen, man, greatest manager of our generation, arguably. Champions League final against us. You know what I mean? He already had the formula before then. Then going into the Champions League final, he tinkered with his midfield. It didn't work out for him. To our benefit, we got the Champions League. Xabi Alonso the other day. You know, you already, before the game, you could sort of look and say, all right, then this guy must be playing, this guy must be playing, this guy must be playing. Completely switched it up. Pochettino as well, pre-season, completely switched it up. I just sometimes think that, you know, managers do hit the panic button and they get too smart for themselves and they like to change things that don't necessarily need to be changed. So I think it's the same situation with Pochettino. Outside of the injuries, of course, that's nothing you can really do about that. But I do feel that there was a bit of a switch that nobody was expected from pre-season to the beginning of the season.
Yeah, no, that's spot on, man. And Jem, Malusi, big up Malusi. He says here, I'd rather have someone who believes in his style and die by his sword, or someone who defends against Bournemouth and Sheffield United. So he's obviously speaking about De Zerbi and a comment that all of us are kind of, skeptical about and concerned about in terms of constantly playing out from the back. But what do you think of this comment, bro? And what do you think about De Zerbi? Do you think, potentially he could be the right guy for Chelsea?
I don't know. I don't know anymore with us and managers. It's just, you know what I'm like when it comes to it. I find it very hard to be like, yes, that's the guy. That's the one.
Unless it's Tuchel, bro.
But no, look,
I agree. He's one that doesn't think Tuchel did a madness towards the end. He loves it. Jem loves Tuchel.
I never said that.
No, I'm joking. I'm being what's the word? I'm being disingenuous. But yeah, no, carry on, bro. Carry on.
It's one of them ones for me. It's a lot of what I feel is exactly what Guni said in terms of how he feels about De Zerbi. Like, I can see why certain people want him, because I think when you look at the profile players we have, I think it suits him. I think he just comes in and he can just implement it. And I think the players will pick up on it quickly as well. He has got relationships with Caicedo, Mudryk and Colwill, which is a bonus as well, 100%. I do like the way he takes risks to a degree. I mean, we've been risk-taking. We've been playing risk-taking football for a while anyway, to be quite honest with you, and it hasn't really worked out well under Poch to a degree from the back. Let's be serious. But, he's... The only thing that worries me with him is the whole dying on the sword thing. And like, he doesn't, I like my managers to sometimes be a little bit active in problem solving, if that makes sense. And when we're when something's just not working, or you need to do something, you might even need to just change a player, for example, because that player is just not playing to that level today and it's not working. I like my managers to be a bit active, and like when someone just sits there and leaves it and keeps telling them to do it. And we end up losing, and then we play another game and we draw, and then we win, and then we lose. I start feeling a bit like, meh, like, come on, you need to give him something else. And I just worry with De Zerbi a little bit that, does he have that sort of plan B idea with what he wants to do? And, I don't think he's shown that at Brighton, even though I think he's been done hard by Brighton with not replacing the top players that left the club and stuff. But then I have watched a little bit of him as well this season, and some of them big losses that he had, especially to like Arsenal, Man City, I think it was Newcastle as well. Like, geez, that's some real bad losses. It's down to not having specific players and then being out and injured. A little bit like Poch to a degree, but it was also down to the fact that he was just very naive in trying to change it and trying to help them on the pitch with what he has, or trying to adapt. Adapt's a word for me. Like, just adapt sometimes, with what you have. Like, and the best managers for me, I always say it, bro. The best managers for me are ones that come in and they always adapt, if that makes sense. So they can play like how they want to play, but if something happens or they miss this, and it always happens in in any team when it comes to coaching, if you can adapt yourself to certain situations, like I felt Tuchel did to a degree at some points in his earlier parts, then you become very. For me, you become a bit of a problem, because you can't really work out how we're going to do things a little bit, or if we're going to change that player over there and put him there, and like, or we're going to change the system slightly or tweak it, like just a little bit. Just
to play devil's advocate a bit, Jem. Yeah, do you think that we're overdoing it a little bit with the plan B? Because if you look at a manager like Klopp, for example, that guy don't really have a plan B. Let's be real about it. It's one way, high line, high pressing football, and it's won them the Champions League, it's won them the Prem, because it works, and he had the players to go and do it. So, if you play devil's advocate, would you look at it and think, okay, if Chelsea go and bring in Osimhen, and then you go and bring Olise on the right, you play Palmer in the 10, you play, I don't know, in Nkunku on the left, for example, you've got a pivot of Caicedo and Enzo, you've got a defender inverting, a Cucurella, or let's say we go by a Kirkes, for example, from Bournemouth. Now you're looking at things completely differently, because you're playing that good football, but then you've got a whole new attack, which is probably going to, bro, one of the best in the league on paper, just looking at that attack, bro, in my opinion, that attack's going to score a lot of goals. We scored how many goals this season? Like 70 something. And that's with the likes of Jackson, that Guni, wants to get the fuck out of the club. You know what I mean? So that's Jackson. How I'm going to look at it, bro. Do you think that De Zerbi's plan A would just outscore teams, Guni? Like, do you think that would be enough to just make sure that we're winning enough games, and probably conceding less at the back because we've got better quality at the back, bro?
It depends on the personnel that we're talking about, because if you're talking about outscore teams, we've got to look better in front of goal than we have the majority of the season just gone, 100%.
That's why I said Osimhen. Yeah, but let's say we've got Osimhen, we've got Olise right wing, you've got Osimhen up top, and you've got Nkuku playing on the left. Yeah, and then you've got Palmer just in that hole, bro, playing behind them. That is
I
what
don't
you
know
call
why Guni
hooping.
don't like Jackson.
That's
what I want,
hooping.
mate.
I'll explain that in a minute, Jem. But just a small one, Don. If you just swap the victors around, then we can agree. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, you want Gokaris, yeah?
Yeah, if you can swap the victors
Okay,
around.
let's say Gokaris then. Let's just say someone better than what we have right
Listen,
now.
I like
Yeah,
that
but
guy.
then this is the thing, is like, you know, we also don't want to rely on, and I know this is a bit of an oxymoron me saying this, but we don't want to rely on, you know, winning games by outscoring teams, because, and what I mean by that is, you know, if you look at that Liverpool team that had Suarez, Gerrard and all that, that's what they were doing. They was just outscoring teams, but like if you're leaking at the back, that could cost you, because I'm a firm believer in that saying, you know, attack wins you games, defense wins you titles, and we've seen that in the history of Chelsea. So there does have to be a bit of balance with that. And in terms of not having a plan B, you've got to treat it on an individual basis. Jurgen Klopp, with his plan A, he hasn't really had to resort to a plan B, but that plan A has worked out, you know, very well for him. It just depends on how effective it is. You know what I mean? We know what he's like. He's very balls to the wall, you know, pause. But it works for him. That's what it is. It works for him. He's got the personnel. He was able to identify and build the squad within his image, and this works. So if you're able to do that with quality players for Robert De Zerbi, nobody's going to care about a plan B, C or whatever. Do you know what I mean? The personnel and the balance just has to be correct for that to work.
Exactly.
Now, why don't I like Nicholas Jackson?
Interesting.
Let's bring it up again. When Jackson is immature, but he's a brilliant footballer, man. Let's be real.
Yeah, because I used to get slated when I used to criticize Jackson by you lot, so I'm just interested.
Nah, bro, it wasn't even that. It was more just the way Guni. I've spoken to Guni about this before, yeah, and you as well, Jim. At that time, you lot were talking about him as if he's useless, and that's where I disagree. I know he's shit in front of. I know he's a bad finisher. But the way you lot were talking about him as if he's Bambi, yeah, and he can't even kick the ball, bro. You know what I mean? But go on, Guni, carry on what you were saying. Why don't you like Jackson, bro?
with Jackson now, the thing is with him is, when he came to Chelsea, I knew immediately that this guy was not a striker. At best, he's a second striker, or he's a winger cutting him from the inside. His decision making, very frustrating. Over dribbling the ball, very frustrating. His finishing, it's no good. Now, this is the thing. Yeah, exactly. So this is the thing. Is like, you know, people will say, well, he's got double digits in his first season in the Premier League. Absolutely. You know, that's decent. You know what I mean? That's very good. But while I feel that there are better options out there that could do the better job than what he can, that's where my frustration comes into it. Like, for example, you know, the fact that the header situation against Manchester City, you should have been pinning that. The header situation against Arsenal, the other opportunity where you hit the side netting against Arsenal.
His headers, yeah, mate. His headers kill me, bro. Honestly.
So, bro, this is what I'm trying to say. Like, there's so many deficiencies that this guy has shown throughout this season. For a striker, it's just frustrated me so much. Now, this is the first thing.
Just on his headers, yeah. Do you think that he's kind of improved them? Because I remember the one against Brentford. I was at that game when he scored away, when he scored the header, the header that he scored against Aston Villa in the cup game. If you remember that one as well. Yeah. He scored a header the other day. What game was that?
But this is my thing. Is Don, football is also about moments. And what I mean by moments is when you show up. It's the bigger games where you're presented chances that you're not taking. Do you know what I mean? There's people out there that have this criticism of Didier Drogba. Well, he didn't score that many goals, blah, blah, blah. Listen, but when it came to big games, you could bet your bollocks that Drogba was going to 100% score in that game. You give him a near post header against Manuel Neuer in the Champions League final, he's been in that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but then that's where you gotta go back. Yeah, but that's the thing though, Guni. Like, he hasn't been brought in to be the final striker. Like,
I get that.
You gotta look at the owners, because we know Jackson should be a squad player. But
I get that, and that's the next thing. That's the next thing I was going to say. I can't entirely place the blame on Nicholas Jackson, because he's been thrown into this position prematurely, in my honest opinion.
Yeah.
He's definitely
similar to Højlund in a way, but he's better than Højlund.
It shouldn't be the case. But the Jackson situation should be, you know, you've got a natural striker that has a goal scoring record and that can show an array of different types of finishes ahead of him. You know what I mean? So it would have made sense to have. I'm just throwing names out there, you know, to have, I don't know, a Benzema, you know, an Osimhen or whoever it is, that is a natural all-round number 9 for him to analyze and study.
But if you go back to the summer, this is where I actually have a little bit of pity for the owners, because bro, the market was dead for strikers for everyone, bro. Harry Kane was never gonna come. He ended up going to Bayern Munich. Osimhen just signed a new contract. Tony was banned. Sesko, what was going on there? You know, I think just moved. Too young.
Sesko's too young, but I believe that
he's another one as well.
He's going to be a top level number 9. That kid, I think
he's not ready.
They
told us Vlahovic was not good enough to be Chelsea's number 9. I remember you guys. I remember.
What scared me about that one was the injury record for that one, because bro, his injury record.
Well, have you seen his injury record this season?
I haven't. But again, I wasn't fully against that one, but Poch decided not to sign him, because don't forget there was a chance to go and sign him. Poch said he doesn't want it at that time, you know, with Vlahovic. But yeah, bro. Listen, Jem, I mean, what do you think of Jackson? I think you kind of share the same thoughts before we round up.
I mean, he just ain't that main guy in front. Like, he doesn't have that, like, in the box. He hasn't got that killer instinct. He doesn't really make, like, his runs are so annoying sometimes. Like, it will make a run, but he'll run into the space that someone else is running into rather than pulling away, and little things like that where it irritates me, where it's like, if you're an actual striker, the first thing you do, and like, I'll give you an example, like Nkunku, since he's come back. When Nkunku scored that goal against, was it Forest away? Was it where he cut inside?
It was it? No, it wasn't Forest. It was Brighton.
Brighton, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was Brighton when he came on.
If you look at what that man did, not only to Lancey, but if you looked at what was so clever about his movement in the box, it's that he occupied the space that he knew no one was going into. Yeah, so he makes that, he goes to go left, but then he changes and he goes into the right because you see Jackson pulling towards him. So he kind of goes into space. With Jackson, he doesn't think about what space he's running in. He just runs into it and then waits, you know, like, and he doesn't really like have that, like, to know in the box for me, like that killer way, you know, like the best strikers, they always know where to position themselves in the box. Like,
let me add to that. Like, do you know, I think you're absolutely bang on the money with what you just said, because I've always been a believer that you cannot teach instinct. The best strikers to play the game have an instinct that cannot be coached. Can't be coached. Van Nistelrooy, this guy, he could sniff danger from a mile away. Do you know what I mean? Erling Haaland, he sniffs danger from a mile away. Benzema, when he's in the box, sniffs danger from a mile away. Do you know what I mean? These kind of strikers have that instinctive sense of positioning and knowing where the ball's going to fall.
It's natural ability. It's natural ability.
2-3 steps before the defender even clocks onto what's going on, which is why that they've got such high volumes of goals season in, season out. Harry Kane, another one. Do you know what I mean? Those are things that you cannot teach a striker. You either have it, in my opinion, or you don't. You can coach the other things around them, you know, shooting technique, touch, and things of that nature. But that instinct has to come naturally within you.
Yeah, exactly. Just to finish off.
Yeah, there is some good positives like about his game, but in a deeper role for me, like where he receives the ball, holds the ball well, carries it out the pitch. I do agree though. Sometimes I think that one thing that really does annoy me with him mainly as well is that he looks down so much. He never looks up.
Yeah.
He never looks up.
One thing. What annoys me, bro? He'll beat one guy, and I'm like, brother, you've done the good thing, like release it. I always say, bro, you've gone past one guy, release it. Do what Palmer does. Palmer will go past one guy, he'll release it, then he'll run into the space, he'll crash the box, get it back, and then it's a goal or it's an assist. Jackson, he will beat one guy, and in his head, it's like, you know, remember, I don't know if you used to play FIFA Street, you know, Game Breaker on FIFA Street, where you're just you're on fire, you're flames and that, you're just doing bare skills. That's Jackson, bro. He gets excited. But like I've said in the group chat, just to round off, boys, because obviously the match is about to kick off. I know Guni, you've got a dip as well. One thing about Jackson, for me, I think the ability is clear to see, right? He can kick ball, I don't look at him and think this is a guy that can't play football, He needs to refine it, and I think it'll be better for him to learn about movement and whatnot if he's playing with a guy like Osimhen or Gokaris, for example, someone who's actually naturally gifted when it comes to that. Even in Cuckoo will help him because they had a good chemistry in pre-season. I know it's only pre-season, but it's a good way for you to see how relationships can be built and whatnot. But yeah, like I said, Jackson for me, I think he'll be a strong enough squad player. Like next season, if we've got to drop Osimhen for a game for fitness or whatever, you bring in Jackson against a Luton or Brentford or something. I'm fine with that. I'm not going to be switching as if we're playing a 17-year-old with no experience. Do you know what I mean? I'll be calm with that. But boys, listen, it's been a good stream, man. An hour 15. We've still got about 124 people in the house, man. Which is mad, like I said. Listen, love for coming on, Jem. Where can they find you, bro? First of all, bro.
Chelsea Fan TV, GNA TV. Yeah, a bit of everything, man. Like, yeah, that's where we are. We're doing a lot of transfer news at the moment, and yeah, you can just find me there, really, or you find me here. You find me everywhere, really. Depends, really. That's where I am.
Yeah, love for coming on, man. Guni, let them know where they can find you, bro.
At this moment in time, I don't want to promise, stream's going to be going up on my channel, but you'll find me on different kinds of platforms. I think the best way to figure it out where I'll be, if you do want to listen to what I've got to say, is on my Twitter. So that's Man No Football. So it's not nose, it's no, didn't have enough characters to make it nose, but so that's where you'll find me. Also, as well, I'm in tentative negotiations with Darko in terms of trying to bring the barbecue back. Do you know what I mean? So hopefully we'll be able to get that going again, since the transfer window is going to be open.
Yeah.
All right, but big up the chat, man. Don is a YouTube palmer of his breakout season. That's a good one. That's a good way to round off, man. But listen, people, let's just hope that Man City deal with these lot, and they just batter them. You know what I mean? Because I'm not trying to play conference and go to some, I don't know what countries we're gonna go, bro. Malta or something like that. You know what I mean? Love any Maltese people watching, but I'm not trying to play football with them sides. You know,
here's one trophy we haven't won yet, and we've won it all, haven't we? So you never know.
Bro, listen, I told Lawless this is a Happy Meal trophy, but this is a McDonald's trophy. I don't want no conference trophy, innit? But listen, up the Chels every time. Love, people. Make sure you're subscribing. Like I said, road to 2K. Until next time, man. Love, up the Blues, up the Chels.
Southgate out.
100%.